Before the pyramids dominated the desert horizon, Egypt was already obsessed with one fundamental question: what happens after death? For the Egyptians, life did not end with the final breath. It continued in another realm, and it had to be carefully prepared. Death was not seen as a tragic end. It was a transition, a gateway between the visible and invisible worlds, but only for those who followed cosmic order. Eternity required balance and obedience to the gods. The pharaoh stood at the center of this belief. He was not merely a ruler, he was a bridge between humanity and the divine. His death threatened the balance of the universe. If the pharaoh failed to reach the afterlife, the world itself could collapse. That is why preserving the body was essential. The spirit needed to recognize it. The tomb was not a place of mourning, but an eternal home. The more monumental this dwelling, the greater the promise of immortality. Before the pyramids, there were attempts. Simple tombs, temporary structures, but none felt sufficient. Egypt sought something final, something that would defy time itself. The decision to build pyramids was not aesthetic. It was born from an obsession with controlling eternity. The pharaoh needed to secure his afterlife, and with it, the stability of the kingdom. Architecture became a political instrument, and engineering an extension of power. The earliest attempts were experimental: step structures, unstable angles, partial collapses. Each mistake taught something new. Each failure cost time, resources, and lives. Egypt learned by building and corrected itself with stone. The pyramids ceased to be just a tomb. It became a declaration of absolute authority, an artificial mountain raised by human hands, visible from miles away. A silent message to the people: the pharaoh was eternal. To make this possible, thousands of workers were mobilized. Stones quarried, transported, fitted with precision, without modern machines, without industrial technology, only organization, human force, and strict discipline. Every block reinforced a central idea: the empire could challenge death. And as the pyramid rose, so did the myth of the pharaoh. The structure was not merely physical, it was symbolic, religious, and political. Among all pyramids, one rises above the rest. The Great Pyramid was not just larger, it was more precise, more ambitious, more quietly defiant. It redefined what ancient humanity could achieve. Built with millions of stone blocks, each weighing several tons, the pyramid was erected with astonishing mathematical precision, almost perfectly aligned with the cardinal points, nearly level on every side, without known modern tools. For centuries, its construction puzzled scholars. How were such massive stones transported? How were they lifted to such heights? How was alignment and stability maintained? The answer lies not in supernatural mystery, but in organization, knowledge, and time. Egyptian engineers mastered geometry, astronomy, and logistics. They designed ramps, lever systems, and collective planning. Nothing was improvised. Every stage was calculated, every mistake corrected immediately. The project demanded generations of learning. The Great Pyramid was not merely a tomb, it was a definitive statement, a visible mark of the pharaoh's power, and of humanity's ability to turn belief into stone. It was not magic, it was discipline, faith, and extreme engineering. For a long time, it was believed that the pyramids were built by slaves. This image endured for centuries, but it does not withstand archaeological evidence. The pyramid builders were largely free Egyptian workers, farmers recruited by the state, organized within a strict labor system. These men were not anonymous and disposable. They lived in villages near the construction sites. They received food, shelter, and basic medical care. They worked during specific times of the year, especially during the Nile floods when agriculture was paused. This does not mean the work was easy. Conditions were harsh. Physical strain was extreme. Accidents occurred. Bodies wore down quickly. The human cost was real. The Egyptian state turned labor into sacred duty. Building the pyramid meant serving the pharaoh, and serving the pharaoh meant maintaining cosmic order. Individual sacrifice sustained collective balance. Faith justified effort, and effort sustained the empire. The pyramids, therefore, are not just engineering feats. They are monuments built upon discipline, belief, and human endurance. Each block carries sweat. Each corridor carries silence. The myth of slavery simplifies history. Reality is more complex and more human. For the ancient Egyptians, death did not end existence. It began the most important part of the journey. The soul had to cross dangers, trials, and judgment. Nothing was automatic. Eternity had to be earned and prepared during life. The body was only one element of existence. The soul was divided into parts: the car, the bar, and the ark. Each had a specific role in the afterlife. If the body was lost, the spirit would remain incomplete. That is why funerary rituals were complex and strict. Mummification preserved the body. Amulets protected the soul. Sacred texts were placed in tombs to guide the dead through the afterlife. Nothing was left to chance. The decisive moment occurred beyond life. The heart of the deceased was weighed before the gods. On one side, the feather of truth. On the other, the moral essence of a lifetime. If the heart was heavier, the soul would be destroyed forever. The pyramids were the starting point of this passage, not merely monumental tombs, but symbolic gateways to eternity. Every corridor, every chamber, reflected deep beliefs about order, justice, and fate. Death was only the beginning. After centuries of grandeur, something began to change. The pyramids stopped growing, projects became smaller, less ambitious. The absolute power of the pharaohs began to weaken, and the empire felt the first signs of decline. Building pyramids required immense resources: time, food, organization, and political stability. When crises emerged, this structure became difficult to maintain. The state could no longer mobilize everything as before. Eternity became too expensive. At the same time, religious beliefs evolved. The afterlife ceased to be the exclusive privilege of the pharaoh. Officials, priests, and even common people began claiming their place in eternity. Immortality slowly became democratized. The spiritual center shifted. New funerary practices emerged: rock-cut tombs, hidden hypogea in the desert, simpler on the outside but rich in symbolism within. Ostentation gave way to protection. The pyramids did not disappear due to technical failure. They vanished because the Egyptian world changed. Power no longer needed to be visible from miles away. Faith became more intimate, more personal, and the empire entered a new chapter of its history. Thousands of years have passed and the pyramids still stand. Storms, wars, and empires have come and gone. They remained, not as fragile ruins, but as statements of permanence. The pyramids challenged time because they were designed to do so. Every block was placed with intention. Every alignment followed calculation. Nothing there is accidental. They were built to outlast generations, and they succeeded. They also challenge modern understanding. Without steel, engines, or electricity, Egypt raised structures that still puzzle engineers. Not through mystery, but through the scale of collective effort, through discipline applied to the impossible. The pyramids' legacy is not only technical, it is human. They reveal what societies can achieve when belief, power, and organization align. They show the cost of that alignment and its consequences. Today, the pyramids are admired, but they also provoke questions. What are we building to last? Which works will survive our choices? What will remain as testimony of our time? The pyramids continue to ask. The pyramids do not speak, yet they reveal much about those who built them. They reflect a civilization that believed in eternity, that organized its entire existence around continuity beyond death. Nothing there was made for the immediate present. Egypt turned fear into architecture, belief into stone, and power into control over time. The pyramids show that civilizations do not build only to live, they build to be remembered and to never fully disappear. They also expose a cost. Thousands worked, suffered, and wore down so that a few could cross eternity in glory. Greatness did not come without sacrifice. Immortality was not free. The human price is carved into every block. When we look at them today, the question shifts. It is no longer only what the Egyptians wanted to leave behind. It is what we are leaving. Which ideas we deem worthy of lasting